In the timeline, move the playhead to the end of image 5135. In the event library, locate image 5133, then click on the film strip. Whenever you select still images in the event browser, the selection range has a predetermined duration. To see the duration, press Ctrl-D and it will appear in the dashboard. To change the duration of still images, press Command-, to call up the Preferences window. You can increase or decrease the still image duration by clicking on the arrows at either end of the seconds input field. Make sure the value is 4 seconds, then close the window. Place your mouse inside the selection range, then drag the clip into the timeline and align it with the end of the first image and release your mouse. Now select the image, then click the Crop button or press Shift-C. In the top left of the viewer, you'll see 3 cropping modes: Trim, Crop, and Ken Burns. By default, Trim is selected. Think of the trim mode as similar to what you'd do if you had a pair of scissors and you wanted to remove unwanted parts of the image. The dotted line around the image is basically telling us what we're about to do: cut along the dotted line. So if you wanted to trim out some of the sky, drag downward on the blue hash. Likewise, if you wanted to trim out some of the wagon at the right of the frame, drag the hash on the right side of the frame. This tool is not rocket science. When you're happy with your trims, click Done to apply them to the clip. Now let's take a look at cropping. With the clip selected, click the Reset button in the inspector next to Crop. As you can see under the Type pop-up, the default mode is Trim. Choose Crop from the list, then click the Crop icon to reveal the cropping controls in the viewer. Final Cut Pro lets you access these crop controls using the Crop button in either the inspector or the viewer. To crop the image, drag on one of the 4 control points. Unlike the Trim mode, which changes the aspect ratio of your image, the crop boundaries are constrained to the aspect ratio of the project. Adjust the cropping until the group is tightly framed within the crop boundary. You can also click and drag inside the boundary to reframe your subjects. When you're happy with the framing, click Done and the image will fill the viewer based on your crop. Click Reset to return the image to its default framing. The final cropping mode we'll look at is Ken Burns. Normally you wouldn't associate cropping with Ken Burns, but as you'll discover, Ken Burns is simply a trademark name for animated cropping. Ken Burns, by the way, is a celebrated filmmaker who pioneered the use of motion control cameras to create movement on vintage photographs in his seminal PBS documentary, The Civil War. Select the image in the timeline, then press Shift-C to bring up the cropping controls. At the top of the viewer, click the Ken Burns button. In the viewer, you'll see 2 cropping rectangles, a green Start rectangle and a red End rectangle. Click inside the red crop boundary and the playhead jumps to the end of the clip. Click inside the green crop boundary and the playhead jumps to the beginning of the clip. What this behavior is telling you is that the cropping will change over the duration of the clip. Let's say we wanted to start with tight framing around the 3 soldiers in the center of the group, then widen out to reveal the entire group. Click and drag inward on the corner handles for the green Start crop to create a smaller frame. Then click and drag inside the green boundary to frame the 3 men in the center. Keep adjusting the crop size and position until you've created a nice medium close-up. Now adjust the crop size for the end crop, widening it out to include all the men, including their boots. Make sure to keep an eye at the top of the red crop boundary so you don't crop off the top of their hats. Keep adjusting the crop size and position until you have a nice wide framing for the group. To preview the effect, click the Play Into Out button at the top of the viewer. The effect will continue looping if looping is turned on in the lower right of the viewer. Press your spacebar to halt playback. To see the effect in reverse, click the Reverse button, then the Play Into Out button. Now the image starts wide and pushes into the medium close-up. I have to tell you, this is one of the coolest features in iMovie, and one that's been long overdue for Final Cut Pro users. As a final touch, press Ctrl-V to open the animation controls. Double-click on opacity and create fades at the head and tail of the clip. The final tool we'll look at is the Distort tool, but first, let's add one more photo. In the event library, locate image 0194, select the image to create a 4-second range, then drag the selection into the storyline after the second image. With the image selected, click the Distort button to bring up the controls. Distort pretty much does what it advertises. By clicking on a control point, you can shape the image like a piece of rubber. Distort is most often used for creating a faux 3D perspective or simulating depth. If the image needs to be matched in perspective with another image, the effect is often called corner pinning. Let's create a simple animated faux 3D effect. In the inspector, click Reset next to the Distort property. Move your playhead to the beginning of the clip, then click the keyframe overlay in the viewer to set a keyframe. Drag the control handle on the right side of the frame all the way to the left. In the timeline, move the playhead to 14 seconds, then click the keyframe button again to create a second keyframe. Now drag the control handle all the way to the right to fill the frame with the image. Play all 3 images back to see the result. Because we'll be using this animation in the lesson on titles, let's create a compound clip, then copy and paste it into our main project. Press Command A to select all the clips, then press Option G to create a compound clip. Now select the clip and copy it and press Command 0 to return to the project library. Locate the Weekend Warriors Effects project, then open it into the timeline. Move your playhead to the end of the project, then press Command V to paste the compound clip. In the next section, we'll pick up where we left off and use this compound clip as the basis for the titles and graphics you'll be adding to your project.